Okay, this is it. Final video. Final chapter. If you remember from the end of last time, the last thing that happened was we walked into R and Lillian's room and Rudy was doing something in there. Was it ominous? Let's find out. Well, no, as it turns out, he does not appear to be confrontational or coming after us at all. He is frantically searching for something. He's walking kind of slow for somebody that's frantically searching, and not really tearing the place apart, just kind of looking under the bed, but who knows? Maybe he's been tearing it up, or maybe we're just supposed to use the power of our imagination. He's not interested in us at all, apparently. You can talk to him and he just sort of gives you this very gruff kind of get out message. What is he searching for? That is actually not explained or known by the fans, by the community, by anybody, really. I have a pretty good idea of what I think it is, and we'll go over that later in the chapter. Apparently it's not the diary. I thought maybe he was looking for that, but we can show it to him and he doesn't care. He doesn't really seem to respond to anything that we have to say at this point in time. So like I said, yeah, I'll show you what I think he's looking for later, although it is open to interpretation. It's never definitively answered. Colonel's still over here, still doing his thing. Wonder if he has any different dialogue. That's pretty much what he said before. Just stay away from Rudy. Stay away from him. He doesn't want to talk about anybody. He's still acting like it's just a normal night, so you might assume that at this point in time, he doesn't know that anything's wrong. He just wants you to get away and find other people. Well, maybe we should do that. Maybe we ought to go find Lillian. We know where Rudy is. Celie is probably either in her hut or praying in church. We know where the Colonel is, and that leaves Lillian pretty much. Fortunately, before we go too long, we'll be able to find a good lead. That's Bo the dog. Just sort of fussing and barking. Looks like he's upset about something or other. There is, as we can also see, what looks like something on the door over there. So let's go ahead and check that out. Interestingly, if you try to take the note, it says maybe you should read it first, and as soon as you read it, a gust of wind blows it away. I have no idea why that is important. I don't know why they don't just let you pick up the note. It's just sort of this weird quirk of the game at this point in time. Things get a little quirky here towards the end. Maybe they ran out of space for the inventory or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But that's just something that happens. I think it might be possible to try to take the note first and then it just blows away. Either way, somebody wants to meet somebody in the hedge garden. So maybe we ought to go over there and find out what's going on with that. Before that, though, it's time for you-know-what. That is right. Parrot update. Now, it's never confirmed, but I think that is what Rudy is looking for the gun. Now, why he would be looking here in the parlor, I don't know. Or why he would be talking about it while he's doing it. He surely wasn't talking to himself when he was in our room. And again, that's never given any support. But I'm not sure who else would be saying that Polly would have picked it up. So, that was the last Parrot update. That's everything Polly has to say. So let's go on and find out what is going on in the hedge garden. Who is meeting who? Well, something happened in here. Somebody shot Lillian to death. That's probably surprising for a lot of you. It was for me, assuming at this point in time that Lillian was the murderer. However, something seems to be odd with her, so let's go ahead and check out this scene. This is very mysterious. She obviously died by gunshot, even though she's got a gun, or what looks like a gun, near her. She's also dressed in an old army officer's cape, hat, gloves, and boots. Now, at this point in time, the light may be going on for some of you. And in fact, if we look at the boots, we can see an insignia. We will look more closely at the insignia, but I bet you can imagine what it is by now. Also note that these were 30-year-old army boots from about the time the Colonel would have been in the army. And indeed, we find an eagle on the boot heels. So Lillian is right now wearing the clothes that the murderer wore while committing the crimes. That, if nothing else had, probably pretty clearly points to her being the murderer, but then the question remains, who killed her? And are there, if she was the main murderer, why didn't the person who killed her come find everybody? Why weren't they making a big fuss about things? Was she the one who wanted to meet somebody in the hedge garden? Did somebody tell her to meet them in the hedge garden? Well, either way, we've got a gun, a bullet, and a skeleton key. So we are ready. I wonder if they thought it was weird that they met out here in the hedge garden and there was like a crank in the statue and this secret door open. I wonder if anybody noticed that. Lillian was probably too crazy being in her fantasy world, and whoever else was out here was probably just maybe more focused on her at the moment, although I might have explored the sudden new passage opening. Anyway. Well, we're left without many clues as to what to do. And as you'll see in a minute, it's very good that we picked up the gun, the bullet, and the key. Those are all necessary, and all fairly easily missable. If we didn't have those, we'd just be sort of wandering around. But since we do have them, we can go back in the mansion and find that there's scuffling going on upstairs. Now, this is a timed event. We can take too long to do this, and we will be shuttled into a bad ending. So let's make some haste. However, there is one little thing before we go further upstairs, so apparently this is happening in the attic. If we wanted to suppose that Lillian was the murderer, which I think we probably should at this point in time, she probably got up there by having that skeleton key, and we used the elevator, getting the key out of the Colonel's cannon. She apparently had a key from somewhere else. Now look at this, in the Colonel's room, someone has left the doctor's bag open. We haven't seen that in kind of a while. And we're not allowed to take it or search it or anything like that. We can see that the elevator is upstairs. The bag is open in the Colonel's room. Lillian is shot dead. And so that leaves Seeley, Rudy, and the Colonel. So let's see what's going on. We heard scuffling further upstairs. We still have plenty of time, by the way. This is a timed event in the sense that I think if you take, 5 minutes or something like that, it'll probably run out. If we hadn't searched Lillian's body, we wouldn't have found the skeleton key. Now, because the elevator was upstairs, this door is locked, we would not have been able to get in up here, and I think it would take too long to go back to the hedge garden once you hear the scuffling. So it was a good thing we got that. And what do we find in the attic? But the Colonel and Rudy locked in a fierce struggle. Now, folks, we've got a gun and a bullet loaded in the gun. We have to choose which one of them to shoot. Or we could do nothing and just let this play out. I'm going to let the two of you choose. I'm going to let you choose between the two. And so, make your selection, and I will catch you at that ending. Alright, we have chosen to shoot Henri. Frankly, I think this is the more sensible choice. He was faking injury, or that he couldn't walk. We know that he's been in secret passages because we've smelled his cigar smoke. And we found the bag open in his room. You get the sense that he's sort of been in charge of things all night, that he's been manipulating things for some reason. I mean, he's the reason we're all out here. And everything just sort of perfectly happened to let all these murders happen. Not only that, I think Rudy tells a fairly believable story here. He basically says, somehow, presumably by being in secret passages or moving around, he found out that Uncle Henri never had any intention of giving anybody money, and that he was trying to kill everyone off one by one. Now, this does leave some things unexplained. For instance, what's going on with Lillian. He doesn't mention anything about that, so presumably the Colonel would be the one that shot Lillian, and either he manipulated her into killing people, or he's been doing it, or she's been doing it on her own, and he decided to kill her. That part is a little strange. However, I think just in terms of suspiciousness, I think the Colonel is probably the best choice. Again, the faking walking, the motivation for getting anybody out here, the doctor's bag open in his room, and then them fighting with a hypodermic needle very much seems to point to the Colonel being the malefactor. Needless to say, of course, because this is a Sierra game, this is, in fact, the wrong choice. So congratulations, you chose intelligently, and in the way that I think marks you as a person with good critical thinking skills. You are also wrong. This is the bad ending. And we're about to see, we're about to get a clue that maybe that is the case. In all endings, you sort of leave the island. However, in this one, you're taking the ferry back to New Orleans, presumably to tell the police what happened. Rudy, by the way, has a terrible story now. I mean, it was somewhere between it... Assuming that Lillian's been killing everyone, and I think we can assume that properly. If he hadn't killed the Colonel, then his story would have been, this lady went crazy and was killing everybody. The Colonel would probably back him up. We probably would have backed him up. I don't know about Celie, but she probably wouldn't mind. And then he'd stand to inherit half the fortune. As it is, basically he still only gets half of it, because Celie's still alive, and now everybody died. So, I guess congratulations, Rudy. You made your story a lot less believable to the police. But you can go back and try this again if you like. You can see that we only get seasoned PI. We don't get super sleuth in this one. So, bad ending, smart choice, bad ending. Alright, we have chosen to shoot Rudy. It's a little odd that the Colonel is up here, that the hypodermic needle was probably taken from the doctor's bag open in his room, that he's been spying on everybody. But Rudy was creepy enough that we feel that he was probably the one who was attacking, at least in this one specific case. Let's see what the Colonel has to say about it as he sort of ambles over to us. He was just engaged in a fierce struggle with a man decades his junior, so I don't really buy that slow walk anymore. Could he look more suspicious? Could he sound more suspicious? This really sounds like it was the wrong choice to choose him. I mean, just his eye motions? I don't know what exactly they were intending, but he looks evasive, like he's not trying to look at you. He acts like he's so innocent, like I just invited everybody here, and who could say, but they were just trying to... Look, even his low-res, low-pixel animation is moving his eyes around in this evasive way. And he expects us to believe that he has been spying on everyone through the secret passages without telling people, and didn't see any of the murders or notice anything wrong. Rudy came to him and told him that Lillian went crazy, presumably before he went to the hedge garden. Rudy did. Wrestled the gun out of Lillian's hand and shot her. So, I guess because he says that, I guess Rudy wrestled the gun out of Lillian's hand, shot her, left the gun there, came back up to the Colonel's room, somehow got a hypodermic needle out of Wilbur's bag, left the bag in the Colonel's room, and met the Colonel in the attic where he decided to have a struggle to the death. I'm sorry, Colonel, your story just does not hold water. I don't believe it for a second. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's just so dumb that Rudy would go after him. Because he stood to inherit half the fortune as it was, and if he just hadn't gone after the Colonel, well, then he would have inherited half the fortune, and apparently the Colonel believed his story about Lillian. We would have backed him up, so he would have just had this ironclad case. Well, regardless, he's decided to leave everything to Celie, so she has to stay on this awful, swampy plantation and care for dying animals, in return for which she gets an incredible fortune. So it seems like a pretty good deal. We get the jewels that we found, which I guess we're going to sell them to a jeweler or put them on the market or something. Not entirely sure. However, this is sort of unprecedentedly nice for the Colonel. Kind of seems like he's bribing us to keep quiet about the evening, but whatever. And now, ignoring us, he launches into a monologue about how people are greedy, rude, and selfish. Ladies and gentlemen, the definition of hypocrisy, right here. Colonel Dijon accusing other people of being rude, greedy, and selfish. The man who will not spend a penny to renovate his crumbling estate, who has millions and millions of dollars, and is the rudest person in the world. Doesn't like people for those 3 reasons. Well, it didn't make any sense, but this was the correct ending. It was, in fact, Rudy attacking the Colonel. And so, that gets us the Super Sleuth. Well, if you guys want to see what the other endings look like, I will see you back at the decision point. So, we've chosen to do nothing, to stand idly by and watch as this happens. You're probably not thinking that this is the best way to the end. Heck, maybe you did. It's not. This is a bad ending. Rudy prevails, being like 30 years the junior of Colonel Dijon, stabs him with whatever was in that hypodermic needle, and this basically plays out from now exactly the same way as if you had shot the Colonel. Rudy wins, he gives you a story, which is stupid but slightly more believable than the Colonel's story. If you haven't seen that one, then check that out. Unfortunately, this is the wrong choice. The actual happenings of the evening were Lillian went absolutely insane with jealousy and rage and insanity. Decided that everybody needed to die, so she went upstairs into the Colonel's room with the skeleton key that she had, put on his old war clothes, and started killing everybody one by one. She dragged their bodies all over the place before dumping them down the chute. She was able to get back into the attic frequently to change clothes, and was just incredibly lucky because nobody saw her. Also, she was able to drag bodies without leaving a trail of evidence. That's neither here nor there. After this has gone on for quite some time, Rudy apparently discovered what she was doing and told the Colonel about it. The Colonel believed him, and Lillian at that point left a note for Rudy saying, "Meet me in the hedge garden." He went because he's dumb, and she had a gun which she had taken. He also knew that she had a gun. Presumably, this confrontation happened sometime between when he was searching for the gun in your room and when he went out to the hedge garden. Anyway, he took it from her and shot her. At that point in time, he had the Colonel on his side because he told the Colonel what had happened. He had half of the millions of dollars, and he decided to go find Dr. Thiel's bag somewhere, open it in the Colonel's room, meet him upstairs, and try to stab him with the syringe. You managed to find everything, however, you did not intervene, and he was successful in attacking the Colonel, so presumably he's going to get away with all the money in this case. I think. Maybe actually only still half of it, because Celia is still alive. But they give you weird little clues that maybe this wasn't the right thing to do. I'm going to say I don't particularly like this ending, and here's the reason why. We've been collecting evidence about the plots of everybody this whole time, and the end has nothing to do with any of that. The actual murderer is shot off screen and you only find her body, and you have to make a snap decision, choosing between two people that were never the murderer before this and left no evidence of being so. The only reason that we have for choosing Henri over Rudy is that we know that he is supposed to be slightly more trustworthy, and the only reason we would know that is because we've had various clues throughout the evening that maybe he's an okay guy, just sort of misunderstood. But he isn't. He's a huge jerk. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say. That's the end, everybody. That's it for the canon portion of the LP. So if you want to go back to the decision point, if you hadn't seen the other endings yet, go for it. Otherwise, I will see you in the alternate endings.